Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. When parents talk about the impact of the internet on estrangement, they usually speak in fearful tones. They're worried about online support groups and videos and social media posts that encourage people to cut off and stay away from their families. Many parents are afraid that those messages online are more powerful than their own influence in the relationship with their adult child or children. They don't trust that, as parents, they've had a unique impact on their children, and that in all likelihood they'll retain potential influence for the rest of their lives. Instead, many are concerned that a current lack of contact is erasing them from their children's minds, leaving their children prey to negative influences. In case you carry the burden of those concerns, I'm going to share today, with permission, some words from a Reconnection Club member who is herself living with an unwanted estrangement from an adult child. I think she offers a valuable perspective that may bring you some comfort. Because unlike parents who are apprehensive about negative forces on the internet or in social media pulling their adult children away from them, this parent is much more positive about what's going on online. And I want to thank her sincerely for allowing me to share what she wrote. As you'll hear, her words are full of hope and optimism, not in spite of online groups for estranged adult children, but because of them. And this is a mental shift that I'd love to see every parent make, because it directly challenges the false beliefs and powerlessness that can quickly take hold when you hear about support for people estranged from family. Here's what this Reconnection Club member and unwillingly estranged parent has to say about estranged adult children talking to each other online. I wish that when I was a young person, I had access to all the wonderful resources available now because of the internet and other digital technology. If I had that access, I could have known I was not alone, and I could have found guidance on how to cope with the difficulties I was experiencing. Our children have been so fortunate to live in a time when this is all available to them, and so are we. I see the world as constantly changing rather than getting worse. In the past, a lot of problems in families were kept hidden because of shame and fear. I am glad my estranged adult child is able to learn about her needs and connect to other people for support. I would hate her to experience the ignorance and isolation I experienced at her age. So this unwillingly estranged mother is celebrating the support, education, and resources available to people who are distancing themselves from family, including her own adult child. And it's because she knows, and we know from the research, that people are not happy about having to make that choice to distance themselves, and that they experience both internal and external pressures to reunite before they're ready. And that while it may bring some relief, estrangement is not easy or pleasant for most. This parent is glad her daughter has somewhere to turn for help during this difficult period in their relationship. She also has a healthy sense of her own ability to learn and grow despite the unwanted estrangement. She writes, "Regardless of the state of the world, we can have loving relationships within our families and outside them. I'm learning how I can make this happen better in my family. I need to concentrate on that. We can achieve that no matter how bad things are in the world around us." She's saying here that yes, the world can be a harsh and unforgiving place, but she's decided to concentrate on what she can do to heal whatever needs healing in her sphere of influence, including her own relationships. She's doing personal work in the absence of her adult child so that she'll be ready when the time is right to reconnect. She then addresses a common but often unconscious mistaken belief that adult children are not making their own decisions when it comes to estrangement. In the majority of cases, based on my experience and the research we have so far, most adult children do not become estranged from parents against their will. And I'll say more about that in a minute. This parent recognizes the autonomy of her estranged adult child when she writes, "I know my children are not hostage to dark forces or brainwashed by anything or anyone. My children were raised to think for themselves and have been well educated to understand our complex world and to become part of the solution. I am so proud of them for that." Well, I appreciate that she's acknowledging her children's power of choice here, but I would be remiss if I didn't say something about cults and the fact that cults do exist, and every cult member is someone's child. If you're convinced your adult child is in a cult, you may be right. There are resources for families to help you figure out what you can do. I'll put a link in the show notes to get you started. But chances are, if we're talking about support groups and forums for estranged people on the internet, you most likely don't need to be worried about your child being brainwashed. Part of what makes a cult and not just a support group or forum is that cults attempt to isolate their members from not only family, but all outside sources of support or information beyond the cult itself. If your child is reading books or posting in forums or watching videos, it seems to me that what they're doing is educating themselves and seeking support for their situation in the company of others who understand. Exactly the same thing you're doing by listening to podcasts and perhaps joining the Reconnection Club. No isolation required. So it's good to be aware of cults, but I'm comfortable asserting that estrangement per se is not a cult. And this particular parent is not worried about that. She ends with the following words: "I respect my daughter's quest to have healthy and positive relationships in her life and for her children. She has not had that from me in recent years. She has made that clear to me, and I've heard the message. I'm now doing what I can for her to have that sort of relationship with me." That looks like simple accountability that she's offering without beating herself up about anything. She's simply stating that the relationship hasn't been positive in recent years and that she's committed to doing what she can about it from her end. Now, I don't think there's any question that there may also be work to be done on the other end. But that final paragraph brings the whole matter back into an arena where the parent can use her own power of choice to create conditions favorable for reconciliation. That's the best she can do. She's focusing not on what's happening online with estranged adult children or on what her child needs to do to make this work, but on her choices and her own personal growth to make sure that her influence is healthy and positive. There's no guarantee that the work she's doing will lead in a straight line to reconciliation, let alone to one that is speedy or solid. Because again, there's evolution on the other side as well, and not everyone is on the same schedule. But for now, I encourage you not to waste your time or energy fearing the support for estrangement that exists online or anywhere else. There's support for all of us online, as this parent is pointing out. The principles of healthy relationships apply to everyone, and we can all benefit. Most importantly, our ability to connect harmoniously with other people, including family members, begins with our relationship with ourselves. Once again, to the parent whose thoughts I shared today on the podcast, thank you so much for writing what you wrote and for granting me permission to share it. I hope your words have inspired or soothed another parent who's listening. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please, take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out ReconnectionClub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at ReconnectionClub.com.